Chapter 8. After Coraline Sterling's death, Ronald Bennett was released from prison, covered in wounds. The three of them brought him large quantities of precious medicines, seemingly having forgotten who had caused Ronald Bennett to be so severely injured. For some reason, my health had been deteriorating. I often caught colds or felt dizzy while walking. On my usual way to the Royal Academy that day, I heard His Majesty was unwell and had missed morning court for many days. Furthermore, Jackson Mercer had been extremely busy lately and had rarely appeared before me. I suspected the plot must be advancing toward a struggle for the throne. While they could drive the plot forward, they couldn't skip essential plot points, such as the crucial moment of seizing power. Jackson Mercer was the crown prince, and his succession should be a matter of course. However, due to certain characters awakening, the Empress now wanted to support the youngest prince, the ninth prince. So, it remained uncertain who would ultimately ascend the throne. What I needed to do was draw both Elias Vanderbilt and Becket Sterling into this power struggle. Miss Silas, this is a luminous pearl gifted by a small border nation. It suits you perfectly. Jackson Mercer smiled and handed me a bead. I accepted it listlessly and said casually, "The Bennett estate has many such things. They're not that rare." "Then what does Miss Silas consider rare?" Jackson Mercer asked, feigning helplessness. I turned my gaze to him and said, word by word, "Naturally, something that is one of a kind." Jackson Mercer paused, then smiled and took my hand. I knew he understood my meaning, the unique position of Empress and the royal crown. "Soon, all of this will belong to Miss Silas," Jackson Mercer said, raising an eyebrow at me. Then he added, "But once Miss Silas accepts this position, she must sever ties with those other two." Looking into his expectant eyes, I gently shook my head. Seeing this, Jackson Mercer frowned and unconsciously tightened his grip on my hand. "Why?" he asked, his voice rising. "They have both treated me very well," I said with a laugh. "Becket Sterling taught me to ride and took me wherever I wished to go. Elias Vanderbilt taught me to write poetry and introduced me to many things I had never heard of before." Jackson Mercer's eyes gradually darkened. I glanced at the sky and withdrew my hand from his. I promised Becket Sterling I'd try the marble cakes he made today. I left before Jackson Mercer could react. But shortly after, I could hear the sound of shattering porcelain and Jackson Mercer's roar of exasperation. I smiled, paused for a moment, and walked towards the Imperial Bureau. Becket Sterling, the high-ranking official in charge of the bureau, was now flustered in the small kitchen. A young servant tried to help but was shooed away by Becket. "Miss Silas." The servant's eyes lit up upon seeing me. After greeting me, he hurried into the kitchen to speak to Becket Sterling. Hearing this, Becket Sterling hastily grabbed a cloth and wiped the flour from his face. "Miss Silas." Becket came over, took my hand, and pointed to some oddly shaped lumps of dough. "These are marble cakes I made myself. We'll steam them over the fire, and then we can eat." "The marble cakes you made, sir, are delicious," the servant praised. I frowned, gasped, and abruptly pulled my hand from Becket Sterling's grasp. Becket, puzzled, asked, "What's wrong?" I hid my hands behind my back, not daring to show him, but he pulled them forward anyway. On the back of my fair hand, several reddish finger marks were visible. Becket Sterling's pupils contracted slightly, his face darkened, and the servant beside him was too frightened to breathe. "Miss Silas, what happened?" he asked, suppressing his anger. I just came from the Royal Academy. His Highness must have gripped my hand a bit too firmly, I said with a smile, pretending it was nothing. It's fine. These marks will fade in a few days. Hearing this, Beckett lowered his eyes and stared at the back of my hand for a long while before forcing a smile and murmuring softly, "It's fine. It's fine." He spoke very softly. I didn't know if he was speaking to me or to himself. After a long while, Beckett Sterling seemed to calm down. He took the steamed marble cakes out of the steamer and arranged them neatly. Although Beckett's marble cakes looked unappealing, they tasted all right. After eating one, I didn't have a second. "Is it not good?" he asked nervously. "It's delicious," I smiled. Seeing his expression relax, I casually added, "I want to take the rest to Elias Vanderbilt. He's never had marble cake before, and I want him to try my favorite pastry." As I expected, Beckett Sterling's expression changed drastically, and he could barely maintain his usual forced smile. "Miss Silas." Veins bulged on his forehead, but he still suppressed his anger, trying to speak gently. "You told me a few days ago that we would exchange vows in secret and become husband and wife." That was said in a drunken stupor. "It's not to be taken seriously," I said dismissively, then turned to him with a smile. "Besides, His Highness told me today he would make me the most honored woman in the realm. How could a mere bureau official compare to that?" After placing the remaining pastries into the food box, I stood up, smiled, and looked down at him. "Beckett Sterling, since I'm going to stay here, I naturally have to weigh the pros and cons and choose the best. And only Jackson Mercer can give me the best." I stopped looking at his expression, picked up the food box, and walked out. But suddenly, a high-pitched voice called from behind me. "Miss Silas. Miss Silas." It was the young servant who attended Beckett Sterling. He hurried after me, looked at me for a moment, and seemed to hesitate about whether to say something. Seeing I was about to leave again, he called out, "Miss Silas, could you please not deliberately provoke the master? He's not a bad person, he's good. He never skimps on our food or rewards. When he has time, he teaches us to read and write. He even instructs the executioners to be quick and precise, to avoid unnecessary suffering or a second strike. The master is the best person I've ever met, far better than my parents who sold me into service for a few coins." "So," the servant looked up at me timidly and asked in a low voice, "Miss Silas, could you please stop deliberately making the master angry?" I stood there, stunned, feeling utterly powerless. What's the point of staying here? I can't stay just because of someone or a fleeting feeling. Besides, even a servant could see through my poor acting. How could Beckett Sterling not? It was just a matter of a willing participant taking the bait. I lowered my head, suppressing the stinging tears welling up, and slowly said to the servant, "No."